Oh, Mr. Russo, I just finished rendering this scene for Infinity War. Sorry, the Russo brothers have been kicked off this project. I'm in charge now. Me. Michael Bay. So show me what you got. Well, it's the scene where Thanos punches out Iron. I hate it! What? This will never make money. I know how to make money. How else do you think my movies made $8 billion? By pandering to the lowest common denominator. No, this needs to be more aggressive, manlier, sexier. It needs shaky cam. Shaky cam is hella manly. Still not manly enough. Make it sunset. Still not enough. It needs more. Put in a lens flare. A lens flare? Hey, who made $5 billion off of stupid? Still not good enough. Not sexy enough. Ooh, I got it. What's sexier than America? The point is to make it sexier. Move over. Almost. But it's still missing. I got it! Don't wanna close my eyes. I don't wanna fall asleep 'cause I miss you, baby. And I don't wanna miss. Yeah, I've saved this shit pile of a movie. Now take your clothes off. I'm gonna film you bending over a Ferrari. What?
Hello there. I just want to remind you before the video starts to please like, share and subscribe. Michael Bay has been called many things. Auteur, successful, Satan, but there's no denying that he has made his mark on cinema, for better or for worse. He's mostly known these days for Transformers, but his filmography begins much earlier than that. With a feature film career beginning in 1995 and consisting of 13 movies, I am taking it upon myself to watch and review all of them. That's right, 13 movies and over 31 hours of Michael Bay? Fuck me, that's like 2.5 hours a movie. What am I getting myself into? Well, I'm not going to pull out now. I'm going to watch and review every movie directed by Michael Bay. I mean, how bad can he be? Fuck.
I make movies for teenage boys. Oh dear, what a crime.
Bad Boys, 1995. Michael Bay started his career directing music videos, which gained the attention of producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who would also direct Bay's next few movies. So, Bad Boys. How is it? Well, you can certainly tell it's a Michael Bay movie. There's the slight racism, the slight sexism, the chaotic, at times incomprehensible action, the humor that rarely works, and of course, the objectification of women. All those cliches. Except perhaps for Michael Bay's most famous cliche. We don't get our first explosion until after the halfway point. I shit you not. It does have structural problems. The second act seems to go on for too long and takes up some of the time that should be used for the third act, which seems rushed. But it still has a clear structure. Our leads, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, share some good chemistry, and the cinematography is pretty good. But what is with those yellow skies? If this was being made today, the leads would probably be portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart. Or Anthony Mackie and Kevin Hart. All I know is that Kevin Hart would definitely be in it. So yeah, Bad Boys. The leads are good, but the movie itself is kind of boring. I think that if the script got us to care about the characters, the movie would hold up better. But for a debut film, it's not bad. Let's see if Michael Bay goes up or down.
Directing is not a job. It's more like a career, which is great.
The Rock, 1996. Considered to be Michael Bay's good movie, or at least his personal best, for whatever that counts. I think that it's only as good as Bad Boys. The problems that were present in Bad Boys are unfortunately still present in The Rock. The structure isn't any better, but this time it's the third act that stretches the movie too long. Another problem is the action. The action is way too chaotic and feels like work just to follow it. Mr. Bay, I know that this is only your second movie, but this and your previous one have both been action movies. If the action scenes are among the worst parts from your movies, you might want to reconsider being an action director. This movie gives us even more of his cliches, including the military, American flags, and shaky cam, which he uses a lot during this movie. The music used for this movie sounds like the music from Pirates of the Caribbean. I know that The Rock was released first, but Pirates is just such a big franchise, and unfortunately that makes The Rock's music distracting. Hans Zimmer was the composer on both movies, so that might explain why. Now, there are some things that I do like about this movie. There's less comedy for one. Bad Boys' weakest part was its comedy. The lead performances by Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, and Sean Connery are all good. It has a decent script. Sean Connery's character, who was an Alcatraz escapee, expresses surprise that the Alcatraz became a tourist attraction. There's something kind of profound about that. People do have something of a twisted fascination with the misery. Or maybe that's just me. And the villain portrayed by Ed Harris is actually a very well-written character. Not to spoil anything, but his motivation is totally understandable and identifiable. This character is almost too good to be in this movie. But as for Michael Bay, after his second movie, I remain unimpressed.
Quentin Tarantino called me once. Someone had written, "Is Michael Bay the devil?" Quentin said, "Don't worry, last year people called me the Antichrist."
Armageddon, 1998. This fucking sucks! All the problems from Bay's previous movies are back and they're even worse. The editing is uncontrollably rapid. It has the worst structure of all of Bay's movies up to this point. The second act doesn't seem to start until halfway through the movie, and Act 3 doesn't seem to start until a few minutes before the end credits, and the movie apparently decided that it also wanted to have an epilogue, so they decided to just play that over the credits. How fucking lazy is that? At least Bay's previous movies had structure. Sure, the structure was a little broken, but they had structure. The movie has the Aerosmith song, "I Don't Wanna Miss a Thing." I like this song, I really do. But its usage in this movie is terrible.
Do you think it's possible that anyone else in the world is doing this very same thing at this very same moment?
I hope so. Otherwise, what the hell are we trying to save?
Don't wanna close my eyes. I don't wanna fall asleep, 'cause I'd miss you, baby. And I don't wanna miss a thing.
The music at times sounds distractingly like Braveheart. While Pirates of the Caribbean and The Rock sounded kind of the same, they at least shared a composer, so it was explainable. But Armageddon and The Rock don't share composers. Did Trevor Rabin plagiarize James Horner? Sorry, but the editing really does suck. It ruins the movie's pace, the movie itself doesn't make sense, and has a poor sense of drama. One thing that's surprising is that this movie has an assertive female character. In a Michael Bay movie! A unicorn wouldn't seem as out of place. At Michael Bay's third movie, I am regretting doing this marathon. Please help me!
A lot of people don't want the pressure of directing a movie the size of Pearl Harbor, but I love it. I thrive on it.
Pearl Harbor, 1991. Alright, in all honesty, I did like this more than Armageddon, but it still sucks. Before I let myself get angry over this shit, I'll say something nice, because I do have some nice things to say about this. First, you pretty much have to give Michael Bay credit for doing something different from his previous movies. It is at this point the least Michael Bay-ish of Michael Bay's movies. I mean, a historical drama directed by Michael Bay? What's next? Quentin Tarantino directing Toy Story? Christopher Nolan directing Mary Poppins? Or, I don't know, the people who made You and Me Dupree making Infinity War. And I already know that Armageddon was a sci-fi disaster while Bad Boys and The Rock were action, but Armageddon still had the rapid cutting and explosions of Bay's previous movies. Pearl Harbor, on the other hand, slows down its cutting, develops its characters poorly, and doesn't show any action or explosions until past the halfway point. This isn't necessarily praise, but again gives Bay credit for doing something different. But like the previous movie, it still has problems with structure. It seems to either have a prologue, 2 acts, and an epilogue, or a prologue, 4 acts, and an epilogue. Either way, at 3.5 hours, this movie is too long and wastes the first hour developing characters that we don't care about, which makes the action boring. You have failed if your movie is called Pearl Harbor, and I can't pay any attention to the attack on Pearl Harbor.
I didn't want someone who was too pretty. Women feel disturbed when they see that someone is too pretty.
Bad Boys 2, 2003. Roman numerals? Fancy. Bad Boys 2 is Michael Bay's first sequel, and his return to straight action. After Armageddon, which sucked, and Pearl Harbor, which sucked less, but still sucks. I guess that this one is a return to form of sorts. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is a good movie. But that is a truly great few seconds of filmmaking. And this movie probably has the best cinematography of any of Bay's movies so far. Or rather the most creative. In fact, this movie in general is more creative. I mean, smuggling drugs and money inside dead bodies? I have not seen that before. Know what else I haven't seen? Cars being thrown off a truck during a car chase. Bad Boys 2 is nearly 2.5 hours, which makes it feel overlong. I do have to commend it for having better structure than Pearl Harbor or Armageddon. In fact, it probably has the best structure out of all of Bay's movies so far. Congratulations! Even though you still don't really care for the characters, there are a few scenes that are genuinely funny. I do like it more than the first Bad Boys. And since that I only like The Rock about the same, I guess that this makes Bad Boys 2 my favorite Michael Bay movie that I've seen in this marathon.
I know critics have been tough on my movies. That's why I've taken Jerry Bruckheimer's advice. I don't hate them. I really don't.
The Island, 2005. Michael Bay's first movie not to be directed by Jerry Bruckheimer. Let's see what changes. At first, it seems that everything has changed. The first act of The Island is very different from a Michael Bay movie. It almost accomplishes subtlety. Subtlety! In a Michael Bay movie! But as soon as we start the second act, it turns into a pretty standard Michael Bay movie. But I'll give Bay credit for trying something different in Act 1, and it is better than the last time Bay tried something different. The performances from the actors are standard. Nothing special, which is unfortunate. When I saw that Sean Bean was in this movie, I got excited because I like Sean Bean. But then I got disappointed when it became clear that he wouldn't be given anything interesting to do. This is a movie that wants to be about things. Things like life, death, technology, humanity, faith, capitalism, kind of. But it doesn't really have anything to say about those things. There's a scene in the movie where a clone gives birth to a couple's baby and the clone is killed afterwards. I feel like that short scene, if made into a movie, could have been better to explore those themes. Like how Bad Boys 2 surprised me with an action scene, this movie does too. I haven't seen train wheels thrown off a truck before. The plot is flawed, there are a few contrivances, and the two romantic leads never really establish chemistry. I continue to be bored by Michael Bay, but at least I haven't been angry for a few movies.
My mind is very fertile.
Transformers, 2007. What happens when you hire a director that said this?
I'm not making a stupid, silly toy movie.
Surprisingly better than getting somebody that said Batman could get raped in prison to direct Batman v Superman. In fact, the first half might be the best of Michael Bay's work, and the second half is more standard Bay. Okay, the visuals to realize the Transformers hold up pretty well, and Bay does a great job building up the Transformers. They're first portrayed as sentient vehicles, which works, and they're played mysteriously. There's a lot of mystery surrounding the Transformers. Unfortunately, the Transformers are only in 1/10 of the movie. The villain Megatron is only in the end. A villain as iconic as Megatron deserves better. So yeah, Michael Bay doesn't care about the Transformers, but the Transformers are ironically more human than the human characters, who are boring and are barely developed. Oh god, I hate Sam Witwicky.
Hello? 911 emergency! My car's been stolen! I'm in pursuit, right? I need all units! The whole squadron, bring everyone!
Frenzy is annoying. And those fucking lens flares. But yes, it is better than The Island.
Well, it's just, it's like, I didn't want to make the boxy characters,
Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, 2009. It sucks! Definitely worse than Armageddon, if that was possible! Okay, the first few minutes are fine, but otherwise it's entirely boring. There's no structure, no sense of progression. Things just happen for no reason. The boring human characters are even worse, while the Transformers are still pushed into the background, and the worst Transformers are given the most screen time. I'm talking about racist Transformers.
Hey, Mudflap, what are we gonna do with this shrimp taco?
Just Bubba capping his ass, throw him in the truck, and then nobody gonna know nothing. I mean,
Optimus Prime has maybe 2 minutes of screen time before he's killed. Spoiler, fuck you! A lens flare's your fetish, Mr. Bay. Leo is a terrible character. I just wanted to fucking stab him. The Fallen makes no sense. The robot rapist.
I can explain everything.
The humor, if you want to call it that, I mean, dogs humping?
For your information, Lois, it's called dogs humping.
And the action is boring because you don't give a damn about the characters. None of Michael Bay's movies have been good, but there's no excuse for any to be this bad. And what did you say about your target demographic, Michael Bay?
I make movies for teenage boys. Oh dear, what a crime.
Well, I saw this as a teenage boy and hated it!
It was just terrible to do a movie where you've got to have the story in 3 weeks.
Transformers, Dark of the Moon, 2001. Okay, this is better than Revenge of the Fallen. The visuals truly are great. It starts off decently, and did you like Sean Connery in The Rock? No, he doesn't voice a Transformer. But Sentinel Prime was modeled after Sean Connery, so Sentinel Prime is kind of portrayed by Sean Connery. And Sentinel Prime is actually voiced by Leonard Nimoy, so Sentinel Prime is kind of portrayed by Sean Connery, and Sean Connery is kind of portrayed by Leonard Nimoy. But this is still a very bad movie. Megatron is pointless and shouldn't have been in it. There are so many pointless scenes and subplots that just go nowhere. The plot's a convoluted mess. Seriously, it makes no fucking sense. Characters just appear and disappear. Why is Sam still in these movies? What else can I say? After you review the first one, you reviewed all of them, the nostalgia critic was right. The characters still suck, the Transformers are still given too little screen time, it's still overlong. Eventually you just tune out and stop paying attention.
It's a Homeland version of Black Hawk Down with giant alien robots.
Pain and Gain, 2013. It's probably just for me deciding to watch and review all of his movies, but Michael Bay's style is starting to give me headaches.
I'm hot! I'm big!
It's just very unpleasant, which might have been the intention. This movie kind of feels like Michael Bay's version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like Michael Bay was trying to make a movie that would be both beloved by everyone and also hated by everyone. Which was also Terry Gilliam's intention with Fear and Loathing. And if I hadn't watched Bay's other movies leading up to this one, I might have nicer things to say about it. I do like Dwayne Johnson. He's hilarious.
Did you get the code?
Something about that just cracks me up. Marvel, put him in one of your movies.
A great character masterpiece.
Transformers, Age of Extinction, 2014. What else can I say? I've already said everything. At first, it seems like you'll be better, but no, it's more of the exact same. But yes, with less Shia, which is a plus. These movies are still way too long, they continue to abandon structure, the characters are still boring, their action is still confusing, the plot makes no sense, the villains suck. Which one? All of them. We have villains in Lockdown, Kelsey Grammer, and Galvatron, who is Megatron reincarnated. Yeah, we can have one well-developed villain, so let's have 3 underdeveloped villains instead. But it goes beyond the villains. There are too many characters that aren't given time to be properly developed. Oh, and Crosshairs has got to be the worst Transformers in all of the movies. I can't remember a Transformer who was so forgettable.
Yes, I've been waiting for them all to dispatch each other so I could take charge with no trouble at all. Just me reporting to me.
Basically, what you didn't like from the previous movies is still here. I do like Mark Wahlberg, though. He's a better protagonist than Sam Witwicky.
Let them hate. They're still going to see the movie.
13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, 2015. Michael Bay likes the army. That's rather obvious from his movies. We see more of the US Army in Transformers than any of the Transformers, and here Michael Bay gets to make a movie about Benghazi. Is it good? No. I'm sure that this was a passion project for Michael Bay. I really do. But sorry, this is still a very, very bad movie. So boring, so forgettable. Seriously, I can't remember anyone's name. You follow characters whose fates you don't care about. The main character's wife is pregnant. It means nothing. No one is a character, nothing stands out, there's no sense of progression, everything just kind of blends together. Basically, it's a Transformers movie without the Transformers.
I've worked a lot of these special operators because I know them personally, as friends.
Transformers, The Last Night, 2017. I reviewed The Last Night back when it was new, and I stand by what I said. But even if I hadn't reviewed it earlier, reviewing it now would be just as redundant. Nothing is different except that the filmmakers have added some King Arthur fantasy bullshit. Otherwise, the action is still tedious, the human characters still aren't interesting, the Transformers are still ignored, Optimus Prime is barely in it. And since the movie has been out for a while now, I will discuss spoilers. The Earth is a gigantic transformer called Unicron. Nothing comes from this. This information is pointless, and this wasn't even a cliffhanger at the end of the movie. It was revealed before the halfway point. That's not how you use Chekhov's gun, Michael Bay. If at the end of Act 1 you tell us that there's a giant transformer inside Earth, by Act 3 we have to see a gigantic transformer. Otherwise you shouldn't be telling us this. Apparently this is going to be the last Transformers movie directed by Michael Bay. Even though he also said that about Dark of the Moon and Age of Extinction. But if it's true this time, I'm kind of surprised that in a movie series called Transformers, we never got a transgender joke. That's Michael Bay's kind of humor, isn't it? So where did it all go downhill for Michael Bay? Honestly, I don't think he went downhill. Because you have to rise before you fall. Michael Bay's best movies are barely good enough to be considered guilty pleasures. A lot of directors who had supposedly lost their touch are thought to have because they previously made some great movies. M. Night Shyamalan made The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, Tim Burton has made Edward Scissorhands, the Wachowskis has made The Matrix. Michael Bay doesn't have an Unbreakable or an Edward Scissorhands or a Matrix. He's just a guy that studios keep hiring because he can trick stupid moviegoers into seeing their stupid movies. And you know what? Michael Bay isn't the problem. We're the problem. Michael Bay isn't destroying cinema. He's just being enabled because we're paying to see his movies. There's a reason why Blade Runner was a financial failure back in its day, while Transformers have made $5 billion, and it's because of us. We complain about Hollywood running out of ideas, but we don't pressure them to think of any new ideas. Why should they, if we're seemingly content to just watch another shitty Transformers movie? Sayonara.
I tried